Welcome to the AA Podcast, our little corner of the web where we are not afraid to discuss tough questions like,
when did nutrition, health, movement, and stress management become alternative medicine?
Where we embrace challenges in all aspects of life to become healthier and stronger versions of ourselves.
And where food and movement are the best kinds of medicine, and cooking meals at home is a revolutionary act.
Welcome back to another episode of the AA Podcast with Ashley Olson
and Andrea Crane.
We are so excited for you to be back with us. We are wrapping up our series, series of autoimmune topic, of the autoimmune topic. So we're hoping today to give you some valuable information that will help you either begin your journey or help you along your journey. But before we get started in all that fun stuff, we are going to share our weekly Bible verse with each other. So mine is 1 Corinthians 10:31, which says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God."
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so mine was John 14:27. "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid."
Love it.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay, so
all right. So last time we were just talking about the triggers that happen or have to be present in order for autoimmune to be present, correct?
Right.
And then the previous episode, we were talking about what the three-legged stool of AI, which is the genetics, the exposure or environment, or the intestinal permeability, right?
That's right.
Or such as known as leaky gut. And then in the last week's episode, we talked about how stress can be a trigger, hormonal changes can be a trigger, illnesses can be triggers, and immune suppressing meds can be triggers for autoimmunity. So we are going to continue on with this episode with, we talked a lot in the last episode about removing gluten, and we harped on that one quite a bit just because it is basically there is no question it has to be removed for a period of time, if not for full amounts of time, correct?
Right.
So this might leave a lot of people being like, well, what in the crap do I eat? Because I can just go to my pantry right now and it's full of carbs. Carbs, but gluten. Gluten-filled products. So we want to give you some resources that you can go and look for on your own, but that you can that's already been out there on the web, and people have put together amazing resources for people with autoimmunity. And then we'll go over some other stuff. So why don't you get started with, so if somebody were to be, okay, I'm ready to dive deep into healing my autoimmunity, or at least maybe not healing it is not the right term, but at least keeping it at bay, and that they're no longer, dealing with chronic fatigue or other issues that come along with autoimmunity. Maybe it's like they can't enjoy going for their daily walk because their joints hurt so badly, right? So where would be a good place for somebody to start other than knowing that they need to remove gluten?
So, diet encompasses just such huge swaths of our time and of our day that especially if everything that you're eating has kind of become an enemy, it's really draining. It's exhausting, especially for people just getting started. And so I I want to be very helpful in terms of resources, where people can go, where you can find recipes, where you can learn how to live gluten free. However, I want to encourage people, remember that stress is also an enemy here. And so when you are trading perhaps the stress of gluten for the stress of the emotional upheaval that comes with changing your diet and, freaking out 5 times a day about what you're gonna eat, how you're gonna nourish
Mm,
yourself, how
so
are
good.
you yeah, how are you going to, interact with people? How do you go out to eat? How do you be social when
Mm,
you're constantly when you can envision yourself constantly having to say, "Oh, no, I can't eat that. Oh, could you put gloves on when you make that? Oh, could you use a separate oven?" I mean, it just becomes overwhelming for
mhm.
people. And I just want to tell you that, for anybody listening out there that's just getting started, I've been living this way for over 10 years now. And honestly, I can tell you that for years, I don't give it a second thought. It's second nature to me. It does not hamper my life whatsoever. It is not a big deal. It's not, I'm not that person. You've known me a long time, Ashley. So, when we go out, when we do things, when we hang out, when we go out to eat, when we, have get-togethers, when we're at a party, like, am I that person? Am I,
No,
a pain
absolutely
in the
not.
butt? Yeah, and so, because of my dietary restrictions, it really there is a graceful way to get around things, and I just wanna give somebody hope who is really uncertain about this lifestyle. You will get to the point where it's just not a big deal. It
Mm.
isn't. So I want to throw out a couple of names. The first one is Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, and she used to go by the moniker the Paleo Mom. However, let me just get into my email here because she goes by a different. I think she goes by Dr. Sarah now. It's Sarah, and okay, let's see, her website, I believe, is the Nutrivore.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Mhm.
do you know who that is? Okay.
So I just pulled up her Instagram page, and it is
Okay.
Dr. Dr. Sarah, Sarahb as in boy, Allantyne. And we
Perfect.
can link this into the show notes for you as well.
Oh, wonderful.
But yes, it looks like the website is Nutrivore now.
Okay. Okay, very good. Yeah, so she used to be the Paleo Mom. Now she's a Nutrivore. She is an extremely learned woman. She's got I guess if there were any critique that I would have at all about her website or her recipes, sometimes she can be very adventurous in terms of the food that she eats. And so it can be a little bit cumbersome to find ingredients. And so I just want to put that out there. But the information that she gives away for free is absolutely spectacular. She's just an incredible researcher and scientist, brilliant woman. So please do look her up. Um, Also, let's see, there's a gal named Mickey Trescott. That's Mickey Trescott, Mickey Trescott. She also has written some autoimmune cookbooks that are very, very good. She's got great recipes. Um,
It looks like her website is mickeytrescott.com. So it's very simple. If you just do
awesome.
a Google, and it looks like she may have partnered up with another person with autoimmunewellness.com.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Okay, yeah, anybody that Mickey Trescott would be aligned with would be very, very solid.
Oh,
So, yeah,
perfect.
those would be great recipes. And then one final one that I have, and this is really um So, for those of you that are just getting started, if there's one resource that you're going to go and really dig into, it would probably be this one, because this is probably the easiest place to get started. Her name is Diane Sanfilippo, and she actually, the book that she wrote that sort of put her on the map was Practical Paleo.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that is a fantastic book. I think it's still, it's got to be still in print. Hang on, I can go to Amazon real quick. But yeah, Practical Paleo is a fabulous book. It's super easy to get started. Yep, you can get it for $20 on Amazon. There's even an updated edition. She's got 150 recipes. Yeah, just really, really solid information. Great book. And you might be saying, well, this is paleo, not autoimmune, but they are one and the same. So true paleo recipes are not going to have any gluten in them. And so if you're finding it hard to find autoimmune recipes with real ingredients that you have access to, start looking for paleo recipes, because that will could be a lot easier to find.
Perfect.
So on that same note, I just want to say, Dr. Ballantyne, Sarah Ballantyne, she has an elimination diet, and you'll find elimination diets all over the web. I have recommended hundreds of very specific elimination diets to my patients of and they've been, of varying difficulties to
Hmm.
implement, just based on what kind of conditions the person I was working with had, or how poor was their health, or how good was their health. What are our goals? What are we trying to do? um, I will say, over the years, my practice has changed considerably. There are a couple of different ways to do an elimination, like to figure out what foods could potentially be triggering autoimmunity. And one way that you can do this is to embark on a really, really incredibly stringent diet. And Dr. Ballantyne probably has the best, most comprehensive elimination protocol that you could do. And it is wonderfully effective. She's got great reintroduction documents and how to do it. However, okay, here's the caveat. It's extremely hard to do.
Hmm.
And so again, we're dealing with practicalities. We're dealing with people's lives, and it's sometimes people don't have the time, sometimes people don't have the resources to completely retool their kitchens, to completely retool their lives. And so over the course of time, it has become more important to me to make slow and steady progress with my patients versus making those what might be giant leaps and bounds, but they can't keep it up.
Hmm.
Or that the changes are so sweeping and so cataclysmic that they just can't do it. And so they go away and they feel like they failed, and they feel hopeless because, well, I can't do the eating thing, so where do I go now?
Hmm.
Um, so I just want to make sure that people understand there are lots and lots of different ways to do this. And most of the time, slow and steady is going to be so much better, is going to be more sustainable than these, ripping band-aids off, and, we're going to throw away everything in your kitchen and everything in your pantry. We're going to turn your life upside down, finding out which foods are triggering you. There is a way to do it that is slower, that is more methodical, and is less disruptive to your life. Does that make sense?
Love it.
Okay.
We something that Andrea and I definitely have in common with both nutrition and with fitness is like what is actually feasible and
Mm,
sustainable
mhm.
that for you long term, because if it's not feasible and sustainable, you're not going to stick to it. You're going to get, like she says, you're going to feel like a failure, and you're just going to throw up your hands at the end of the day and be like, well, I just obviously can't do this, and I guess I just have to live with how I'm feeling. And that's the last place that we want you to be. We want you to feel like you actually have some control and power, with some baby steps. And a lot of times people, um, with autoimmune, they just like, just give me the whole enchilada and I will do it, because they're so miserable.
Mm-hmm.
But once but just like with Andrea saying in the beginning, it's like, what is that stress response going to look like, 3 days
Right.
in, 5 days in, 2 weeks in? You might do just fine the first couple weeks, but suddenly you're at a social event that you don't have control over and you just lose it.
Right.
So
Right. Exactly. And so that's kind of what I wanted to get across, is that, let's pick one thing. And so when I have patients, people sitting in front of me that are absolutely miserable, and they're already stressed. Life is hard right now, and it's just getting harder for people. And so what is the biggest clinical bang for our buck? And to me, that is a gluten removal. And I know that that seems big, but believe me, taking one food, one thing, and removing it from your diet, and then let's see where we are. So
love it.
be perfect with one thing, and I would recommend gluten.
Perfect. And how, on average, like how many days would somebody tend to start feeling the difference of gluten removal?
You know what? It could be, gosh, it can be as early as, a few days. People will start seeing, so for instance, people that have atopic dermatitis, also known as eczema, a lot of times they will start seeing relief of symptoms within days. Now that can go all the way to, you know um, I always tell people, like, if we're going to take something out, in order to clear it from your body, in order to clear all those, because remember, in the previous episodes, we talked a lot about what's going on inside your body, what is actually happening, when you're having autoimmunity. And so the problems are manifested by your body's creation of antibodies against itself, but also against this food that are the triggers, right? And so the whole disease is mediated by antibodies. So in order to clear the playing field of all of those antibodies, there are several different types that your body creates, and they all last varying numbers of days or weeks in the body. Now, the average lifespan of one of these antibodies is going to be about 5 weeks. So I always tell people the minimum amount of time for an elimination is 5 weeks.
Okay.
And then we can see where we are. So, for instance, if we've got gluten out, if we've got some other major food offenders out, and now people are still having symptoms, so now we're really trying to go after some of those kind of little nitpicky foods, like how do we find out exactly what it is? That's where I start instituting the 5 week thing. So we get rid of it for 5 weeks, then we can do a very methodical reintroduction of that food to see if that was the problem.
Mm,
So I would say anywhere from a few days to 5 weeks, but you won't feel the maximum benefit even at 5 weeks. You may feel markedly better, but the improvements, uh, my goodness, improvements can keep happening for months, if not years after that.
that's awesome.
Hmm.
That's good. Okay. Kind of gives the listener some idea of
Yeah.
like what to expect.
Yeah.
So something that has gained popularity over the years, and has sparked a lot of interest because of its basically it's success, quote unquote, if you will,
Yeah, and
uh,
potential for weight loss.
and for weight loss is the ketogenic diet.
Yes.
Now, Andrea and I both believe that there is a time and place for keto, um, and but talk to me about, or talk to us about what you've seen, either with yourself or with people you've worked with, or with um, others that have worked with people. What does the ketogenic diet do for somebody that has autoimmune issues?
Well, so keto, and this is a really, really big topic. So keto can mean 1,000 things to 1,000 different people. If we are talking a true clinical ketogenic diet, that is anywhere between 90 and 95% of all calories coming from fat. We use this in a clinical capacity to deal with refractory epilepsy. This
Mhm.
is seizures that are not responding to medication. We can also use it, it's been used experimentally and quite successfully, I might add, in conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia. And so, but again, this is a almost completely fat diet. Now, that is completely unsustainable out in the real world. And I wouldn't even want someone doing that out in the real world. Now, another type of keto is it's kind of lovingly called dirty keto these days, or Atkins keto, where it's, bacon and eggs for 3 meals a day, and you never eat a piece of fruit or a leaf or anything else. So yeah, that
Carnivore. Carnivore
well,
is also.
yes, yes, and, lunch meat, processed meats, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
So that would all be part and parcel of this, air quote, dirty keto. Um, there's also clean keto, where people are eating, organic dairy products and well-sourced meats and eggs, and eating, a fair amount of vegetables. But primarily, for the sake of discussion, let's just say that keto is under 20 net carbs a day. Okay? So that's kind of, if there was a standard definition in our society, that would probably be it. So under 20 carbs a day, and that's net carbs, so we're not going to count fiber in that number. But 20 net carbs a day. Um, Now, what I will say, what I have seen, and I just want to give this caveat. So there's not a lot of studies that we can point to. There isn't like some general body, robust body of evidence that we can point to and say, hey, we know everything about keto. We know how men and women and these age groups and these disease states respond to it. We don't know that because the evidence just isn't there. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not worthy of study, but it simply means that there's no money in it. And so nobody is super eager to put millions of dollars towards a well-designed study because, again, there just isn't any money in it. And so, but what we can point to anecdotally, clinically speaking, what I've seen in patients, what I've experienced myself, is the following. I find that keto works extremely well for men. It is like the grail. I prefer a clean keto with lots of fiber, with lots of plant matter, with organic and well sourced foods. Again, we can get into practicalities of cost and other things, and there are ways to do this where to keep the cost reasonable. But that's, if I could have anything I wanted, it would be, a male patient on clean keto. That's the best of the best. Now, with women, it gets a lot murkier. Women can drop some significant weight. They can they can realign their insulin sensitivity. They can get rid of metabolic syndrome. There's lots of benefits to be had with keto. However, I never recommend it long term. Um,
And what
And
would be long term in your
you
in
know,
your case? Is it
I
very much variable
it
based on the
is.
person?
Yeah, it is kind of variable. If you've got someone with like 100 or more pounds of weight to lose, you probably have a lot more latitude in terms of keeping them on this long term. However, with someone that doesn't have that kind of weight to lose, I would not want someone on this longer than about 6 months. That
Mm,
that would
okay.
be that would be the absolute longest.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And what are you seeing with people with autoimmunity that have done keto?
Yeah, and this is the thing. Again, with women, there are lots. In fact, the majority of autoimmune conditions um, affect women more than they do men. And there are a few exceptions to that. However, most autoimmunity manifests more strongly in women than it does in men. And so, um, the problem with keto and with women is that we seem to need carbohydrate in order to support not only hormone health, but also to support our stress response. And so that's where I really see it. It can elevate cortisol, it can put you into a hyper stress state over time. And so there's lots and lots of people who are 3 months in, 4 months in, 2 months in, 8 weeks in, whatever, that are like, I'm going to do this forever. I am dropping weight all over the place. This is fantastic. I feel great. I'm thinking so clearly. But then, gosh, much longer than 6 months, and you start this period of diminishing returns.
Hmm.
Um, and women really, really need to have some carbohydrate. Now, I say that, gosh, I say that a little bit cautiously though, because as a culture, as a society, we eat way too many carbs, way too many carbs. And so
Especially processed carbs.
you bet.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so when I say carbohydrate, I really like for people to get, you know, pretty close to 100% of the carbs that they need from. You can throw some beans in there. I'm not a huge lectin or phytin freak. I think I think they all can have their place in a diet.
She does make some mean black beans though,
I
so
really do. I really do, and that's a great source of fiber and carbohydrate. But fresh fruit, I think fruit and vegetables, there really isn't a better source of carbohydrate for us.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
So that's kind of my full of caveats speech on keto.
Yeah. So basically, if you have autoimmunity, be cautious of maybe
Right.
like the long term keto.
Yes.
If you do have quite a bit of weight to lose, then this could be a beneficial start to that. But just
Yes.
be careful that you're not causing extra stress, which would then cause extra cortisol spikes, which
Yeah.
would then cause more
Yeah.
attacks on the body. I mean, it's like a domino effect.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And the hormonal response primarily, gosh, especially in women, is just so complex and convoluted. But suffice it to say, messing with your stress response and creating stress within the body will also make autoimmunity worse.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Speaking of stress, in our last episode, you had mentioned some breathing techniques, and one of your favorite ones is the 4-7-8 breathing technique.
Hmm.
And this was one that she taught me, and at first I was like, "This is stupid," but the more I actually practice it, which I will say I'm not like consistently practicing it, but when I do find myself in more, I notice that my stress,
Hmm.
I do practice this, and I have to say that it does work. So kudos to you, Andrea.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, when we first met, I'm pretty sure she thought I was some hippie woo woo. But yeah, we've both changed a lot since then. So
Oh my gosh, so much.
yeah, so we could teach this really quick. 4-7-8 breathing. I'm just gonna give you a quick tutorial on this. I want you to sit. I have my patients sit with your feet flat on the floor and sit in just a neutral position that's comfortable for you. Um, I want you to close your eyes if there are any distractions. And then I want you to put your tongue on that little knob that's right behind your front two teeth on the top. Okay, so put your tongue there. I want you to hold your mouth just slightly open. Now, we're going to breathe in for a count of 4 in through our nose. Then we're going to hold for 7, and then I'm going to count you out, breathing out around your tongue slowly for 8. All right. So we're going to breathe in for 4 through your nose. Now, when you breathe in, I want you to make your belly really big. I don't want your shoulders going up at all. This is called belly breathing. And we don't want to do that in our Western culture because we think it makes us look fat and we don't want our belly poking out. But unfortunately, we have learned to shoulder breathe rather than belly breathe. And it is to our detriment. We breathe much more shallowly than we should.
And
Um,
this translates into strength training.
oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want a strong core. And it's like, well, you got to learn how to breathe first.
Yes, you're exactly right. All right, so we're going to breathe in for 4. I want your belly to get nice and big and full of air. So in, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out for 8. Around your tongue. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Now, when you're doing this at home, I want you to do 3 to 5 rounds each time you do it. It will literally take you seconds. And it's really, really important that you do it right before you eat. And here's the
Mm.
reason why. This is like a reset switch for your brain. There is a lot of people think that breathing is just kind of, again, it's woo, it's it's not science, but there are physiological ramifications to this kind of breathing. What this does, our bodies, we are binary creatures, so we're either in fight or flight or we're in rest and digest. There are no other states that we can exist in. We are either in fight or flight or rest and digest. Sometimes it's called feed and breed, rest and digest. It's all the same. It is mediated by our parasympathetic system, and that's where we want to be most of the time. Now, unfortunately, with our stressful lifestyles, we are in fight or flight most of the time, and this is to our detriment. It stops our digestion. It causes some constipation, some diarrhea. It really wreaks havoc on our bodies, and so we want to be in that rest and digest mode most of the time. So, what 478 breathing does, or deep breathing techniques of all kinds do, they tell the brain, okay, switch from fight or flight to rest and digest. And you will feel it. So, when
Hmm.
you breathe out, you will feel the room get quieter. You will feel a sense. I always think of it as like a almost like a sense of peace, that is tangible. Like you can really feel it and get hold of it. So if you do try it, you know, try it out for a day, try it out for 3 to 5 days, see how you do. I encourage people to set a timer on their phone every couple of hours, do 3 to 5 rounds every couple of hours, and then see how it affects you.
Love it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's so good. All right, what's the next thing we have on our
Oh,
list is
yes. Glutamine.
glutamine.
Yeah, glutamine's kind of a magic amino acid. We talked about intestinal permeability. So today we've talked a lot about keto diet. We've talked about how to improve stress response with 478 breathing. Now let's talk about intestinal permeability. So there is something that you can do. Gluten free is one of those things, right? That helps to maintain the integrity of that gut barrier. But there is something else. So the cells that line the small intestine that we're trying to keep healthy and keep closed, those are called enterocytes. And enterocytes have one diet. Like they have one food in their diet. This is all they eat. They eat glutamine.
Mm.
And so glutamine will feed enterocytes. And so in order to keep them healthy, a lot of us don't have enough glutamine in our diet coming from protein because we don't eat enough protein. So you can supplement with just plain old glutamine. I like to recommend 5 to 10 grams 3 times a day. And you'll do this for months at a time. And I know it can get a little monotonous, a little tedious, but honestly, it's got a little bit of a sweet taste to it. It dissolves in water. It's very easy to get in. You just get used to adding a little scoop of powder, whatever 5 grams would be. Um,
Mhm.
just get a 5 gram scoop and add it to your water 3 times a day. It's very easy to get in.
Perfect.
Okay.
Something that we didn't actually have on the list, but I did have a question about creatine.
Ah, okay. Creatine,
Anything that somebody with autoimmunity should be wary of?
you know, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Creatine, there's lots of great evidence behind it.
Hmm.
Um, it's great for muscle building, for recovery, for strength. Um, it will hold on to water, so you will gain a couple of pounds, but it's just water weight. Um, Honestly, in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter because
Yeah.
the benefit of creatine certainly outweighs this minuscule amount of water that it hangs on to. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's kind of the extent of what I know about creatine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, no need to further on that. It is one of the most researched supplements
Mm,
out there,
yeah.
and there's some pretty cool studies out there on it, even
Yeah.
for Alzheimer's and
Oh,
dementia
wow.
and brain health. So check that out.
Awesome. Hey,
But
I
anyway,
wanted I
yeah.
wanted to ask you, so how do you deal with clients, because I know you've got a lot of clients that have autoimmune issues.
Hmm.
Um, how do you deal with their training regimens and, keeping the stress response down?
Yeah. So typically when somebody comes to me and I know that they have autoimmunity, they're dealing with a lot of fatigue.
Mm,
So we kind of look at their what they're currently doing, which typically is they're starting from ground zero.
mhm,
So that's actually a great place to start because we can start off slowly.
mhm,
And that's I'm big on reading my clients and their feedback. So not only visually but audibly, what are they feeling?
mhm,
Because it's okay to push yourself, but if they're not recovering after our sessions, or they're just the rest of the day they're just trashed, then we work too hard. So something that I keep in mind is going at their own pace,
mm,
especially in the beginning, especially if they're new to training. um, but movement is so important for people, especially for all people, but especially those with autoimmunity. Now, something that, if I do have somebody that's coming in and they're an ultra marathoner, or they're CrossFitter, or they're doing very high intensity aerobic exercises, even with weights, I give pause on them continuing that just because of the stress response that it has on the body. So, something that I try to stay away from with people that do have autoimmunity and are healing are high dynamic type workouts where we're, jumping, running, getting that heart rate so high that it's
mm,
taking them forever to kind of recover. But strength training is amazing for those with autoimmunity. Walking is so underrated. Walking is so simple. Anybody can do it that have two legs.
mhm,
And you can literally walk around your living room if you can't walk outside. You can, I mean, I highly encourage my clients to get outside, not only just for the fresh air, but for the vitamin D, and sunlight.
mhm,
But just going for a nice walk.
mm,
And it's so there's so many health benefits to just walking. And when we walk, I usually have my dog, so that's kind of a nice excuse to get outside and
Mm,
walk with the dog. But yeah, I think the biggest thing to avoid is like um, high intensity workouts.
mm,
So that's what I recommend for my clients.
mm. Great. Yeah, that's great advice. Anything that's going to exacerbate the stress response. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And
Mhm.
maybe we'll do this in another episode, or maybe just touch on it lightly. There is a good amount of stress that, like cortisol, yes, is a stress response,
Right.
but we have to have cortisol. Like, we
That's
don't want
right.
cortisol to be zero,
Right.
because then that's not healthy.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But you have to have some cortisol, you have
Mhm.
to have some stress response. But would you agree that it's not only the kinds of stress, but also the recovery of that stress?
Yes. No, that is such an excellent point, Ashley. Yeah, that's and the good kind of stress is called eustress, EU stress. And it literally means good stress. Distress means bad stress. So but here's the thing, the body doesn't have the ability to distinguish between good stress and bad stress. It responds to all stress in the exact same way. And honestly, it's kind of a question of volume. So if
Mm,
we think of our stress response as a bucket, and we can deal with with whatever size stress load our bucket can handle. So if our bucket is 1 gallon, um, then that's how much stress we can handle, regardless of where that stress comes from. It could come from relationships, it could come from your job, it could come from sitting in traffic, or it could come from training for a marathon and going and pounding your body 7 days a week in a really stressful training regimen. So
mhm,
the body doesn't know where the stress comes from, but it all goes into the same bucket. And so what we want to do is make our bucket as big as possible, and so that we can handle the stress that we're obviously going to encounter in our lives. And so when somebody is things like gentle walking and stretching, that does not take up space in that bucket,
mhm.
but you still get the physical benefit of it.
Absolutely. Something I didn't mention, because I don't teach it myself, but something I also encourage my clients to look into, if it's feasible, is to do some gentle yoga, some Pilates, stretching, just stretching at home, simple stretches that you can find on, you could find a little routine on YouTube even. But just doing things that don't uh, cause a lot of stress on the body. So,
Yeah.
walking, yoga, Pilates, weight training, all of it is
Mhm.
amazing. All of it's really good. But the biggest thing is knowing where you need to start, where you need to, what's going to work for you in your recovery journey. And then make sure that you are fueling your body correctly. That is another
Yes.
stress. Like, if you are doing these workouts and you are not fueling your body,
Mhm.
you're doing damage. Like, you're not helping
Right.
the situation.
Right. And
So,
primarily if you're eating, and we can make this really simple. It's kind of either inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. And so if you are eating things that are inflammatory, things like omega-6 fats, things like vegetable fats, things like sugar, things like processed and refined carbohydrates,
mhm,
processed and refined meats, those are all contributing to the stress load. They are contributing via inflammatory pathways. And so we want to eat as anti inflammatory as we can.
mhm,
And that is things like omega-3 fats. That is things like well raised, well sourced, grass fed animals. That is things like pastured eggs. Um, fruits and vegetables, organic fruits and vegetables, grow your own.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Which
I
we are going to teach you.
yes, yes, I
Yeah.
can't wait for that. I'm a little
Yeah.
obsessed.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are lots of ways to help your body and rather than contribute to its inflammatory slash stress burden.
Absolutely. And let's not also forget sleep and rest.
Oh gosh, yes.
Like we could
Yes.
do a whole series on just
Mhm.
sleep and the importance of it and
Yeah.
getting good quality sleep. So that's probably going to have to get put on the list for sure. So
Yeah, I think so.
I think this was an amazing little
It,
3 episode series on
yeah.
autoimmunity. And I
You
hope you
know,
guys truly enjoyed it.
and Ashley, if I could just put one more word in there for folks, um, again, in order to give you hope, there are a lot of people really suffering. There are a
Hmm.
lot of people who have been to their providers, and
Mm,
the providers say, yeah, I know you're tired. Yeah, I know you're this, you're that. You're experiencing pain. You've got, pain in your joints. You've got pain in your muscles. You've got um, fatigue and all of these sort of nebulous symptoms. And so, yes, we can do blood work. We can do like these initial rounds of blood work, and then they come back inconclusive. And so then sometimes you start hearing messages like, well, you have small children. This is just a normal part of your life. Well, you are perimenopausal. This is just kind of part of it. Oh, well, you are menopausal now, and this is just part of that. Of course, you're going to be tired. You're getting older. It's just a part of getting older. So there are all of these messages that just aren't right.
hmm.
It's not right.
Yep.
There are certain things that happen to us when we age, but we're the ones who live in these bodies. And so when my patients tell me, I'm tired, and it's not like a normal tired, this is something different, I pay attention to that. Because you know what? The person sitting in front of me has been living in that body for decades, and they know it inside and out. And they know if something is not right.
Yep.
And so I would encourage you, if you are not feeling right, if you have symptoms that are not resolving, um, keep digging, keep digging, keep
And that
going
may
back.
mean finding another
Yes,
PCP.
yes, it may. It may. You need to get to somebody who will listen to you, who will work with you. Now, boy, nobody knows this better than me. Working within the insurance model is
Ugh.
hard. You
Yes.
get 15 minutes with patients, and that includes their time being roomed by our nurses who are, taking your vitals and weighing you and all of those things. Yeah, we get very little time with patients. And I may ask you to come back. Your provider may ask you to come back. But you know what? Do it.
Hmm.
Do it. Come back, because that's how we keep pressing with you. That's how we keep digging with you. We try something, we say, "Okay, listen, this is the time I've got with you today. Tell me, has there been an improvement? Has anything gotten worse? Where are we?"
Hmm.
You try something else, then you come back. So, yeah, I would just encourage you, don't give up. Don't
Nope.
give up. Keep
Yeah.
coming back, keep pressing, keep digging.
Yeah. Totally. So many things to say there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. But we also want to leave you guys with so you might be thinking, okay, I think I definitely need to start a protocol on starting to heal my autoimmunity. So obviously we are saying you have to remove gluten from your diet, so that again seems very
Mhm.
daunting. So we have created a freebie for you guys. Go to the show notes, there's going to be a link for you to grab our freebie, and these are gluten-free dinners, lunches, whatever, that you can make, that are completely gluten-free, and you don't even have to think about it, like very simple
Mhm.
recipes. So
Yep.
we hope that that is a great resource for you. And thanks again for listening. We really hope that this series has been informational, beneficial, and encouraging for you. And if you have any other questions, please reach out to us. Our contact information is in the show notes, and we will get to your questions as soon as we can.
Have a great week.
Thanks. Bye.
The content provided in the AA podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The information and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute medical advice.